how to make my delicious homemade triple chocolate New York City cookies. The best chocolate cookie you'll ever need. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, where I'm going to be making another of my absolutely famous and delicious New York City cookies, the triple chocolate New York City cookie. Honestly, I adore this recipe. You guys adore this recipe. I've been wanting to film it for so long, and after you've seen my other cookie bakes, I thought it was about time I showed you the triple chocolate gooey version. There's always requests for this as a video because you want to see how I make them. So here you go. Let's make the best triple chocolate New York City cookies ever. So when making cookies like this, I tend to use a baking spread which is cold out of the fridge, or a room temperature unsalted butter, because I'm all about making sure that it's easier to mix. Some recipes will use cold butter. It varies so much, but for me, I'll use a baking spread most of the time. And then classically with my New York City cookies, I tend to use a mix of a light brown sugar and a granulated sugar, and mix these together with the butter before adding any other ingredients. So once you've mixed together your butter and your sugars until they're creamy, you can then add in your egg. I tend to use medium eggs in baking, but a large egg will also work for this. And I always add a little bit of vanilla extract just because I love it. But this can be switched, especially for these chocolate cookies, to orange extract, peppermint, coffee, whatever flavor you want. Perfect time to add this as well before you add all of your dry ingredients, which as a normal for me include plain flour, cocoa powder, and the raising agents of both baking powder and bicarb. I use both because this is how you create the giant chunky nature of a New York City cookie. So do use both and don't get them mixed up, because too much bicarb really doesn't taste very nice. But either way, I add in a little extra of some sea salt before I add in all of my chocolate chips. So triple chocolate, triple chocolate. You can of course use all of one chocolate, two chocolates, or all three like I have. Switch to a different chocolate if you fancy, but I have both dark milk and white chocolate here to make the best cookies ever. Start by adding your butter to a bowl, and then add in your light brown sugar, and add in your granulated sugar as well. And then I mix these together until they're combined with the butter and smooth. Once they're combined, I add in my egg, and then I add in my vanilla extract as well. And then we mix these together. Once they're combined, I add in my sea salt, my bicarbonate of soda, and my baking powder. And then I mix these in and then add my cocoa powder and flour. Mix your cookie dough until it looks like this. And now we can add all of our chocolate chips and mix to the perfect cookie dough. So now that the cookie dough is mixed, we can get to the important part, which comes to the weighing and shaping of a New York City cookie. So I have a cookie scoop in my hands, and I would just use this normally for a normal sized cookie. So just scoop and place on the tray. The thing about these cookies is they are giant, and that is what makes them a New York City cookie. So I always have my scales here as well, and it's a lot of cookie dough, a lot of ingredients, but you only get 8 cookies out of the mix. So if I'm honest, if you don't like them large and you half the size, all you've done is made a normal cookie. They're not New York City cookies anymore. You have to have the giant, chunky, gooey middle to make them the perfect New York City cookie. But if you did want smaller ones, there's nothing wrong with that. Weigh them to about 60 grams and bake for 8 to 9 minutes instead, and you'll still have a delicious cookie. But if you want to follow the process to get the giant, chunky, perfect triple chocolate New York City cookies, follow the method of splitting the weight of the dough into 8. For these, it's about 115 to 120 grams per cookie. So what I'll do is I'll portion some of the cookie with this just for ease, weigh it onto my scales, lightly press it together and place it onto my tray before chilling. now I've scooped and portioned all of my cookies, I'm going to chill them in the fridge for about an hour, freezer for half an hour, but the chilling is important to help when you put it into a hot oven, it shocks into place to your giant gooey cookies. So now that these cookies have chilled, we're going to split them between some baking trays. Even though the hotter temperature of the oven will shock them into place, I find it best to only do 4 per tray, just in case they do spread slightly, and everyone's baking trays vary in size. But when we're actually baking, it's really important to make sure your oven is preheated. For the New York City cookies, the temperature is slightly hotter than normal. If you find your cookies don't spread at all, they stay in like a ball shape, either your oven is too hot, you've rolled the cookie dough too tightly, or you just need to like press it down ever so slightly. For me, I know the temperature of my oven really well, so I know what temperature to bake it at, and that's 180 fan. But if you're a little bit worried, you can lower the temperature down, and yes, they might spread ever so slightly more, but it'll counteract any problems. So it's entirely up to you, a little bit of a testing process, and if you're worried, you can also get an oven thermometer. So now I'm going to bake my cookies in my oven, and then I'm going to leave them to cool for half an hour on the tray, and then you can enjoy a perfectly delicious warm and gooey cookie. So now that the cookies have baked and then cooled on the tray, you have some delicious New York City triple chocolate cookies. They are just my favorite things. So chocolatey, as you can see, and they are perfect. So as always, make sure to check out the recipe in the description box. There'll be a link to the blog post with all the information you'll need, and any comments, leave them below and I will get back to you. And of course, come back next time for something absolutely scrumptious, delicious, and something you're going to love. Enjoy!